Okay, so let's dive into something a bit different today. We're going Gothic.
Ooh, sounds spooky. I'm intrigued.
It is, but it's more than just spooky. We're going to be looking at this fascinating link between like social class and decay in Gothic literature.
Okay, yeah, I see where you're going with this. Like how these old Gothic stories use like creepy settings and crumbling mansions to talk about real world stuff.
Exactly. We're digging into an excerpt called Class and Decay in Gothic literature. And it really gets you thinking. It's like those classic authors, they were using these spooky settings to talk about things like um, wealth and poverty and even like how societies change and, well, decay.
It's true. It's kind of amazing how they took those images of decline, like old systems crumbling, powerful families kind of falling apart, and even like entire societies just decaying. And they used that, they used that to tap into some deeper anxieties. It wasn't just about giving people the creeps, they were making a statement about something much bigger.
You're so right. Like it's almost like they were using this decay as a visual metaphor, but the excerpt makes it clear that it's not just about like physical decay, right? There's something else there. What were these authors really trying to get at?
Oh, absolutely. It goes so much deeper than just like crumbling walls and stuff.
Yeah.
Often that decay is really a symbol of moral corruption or
Mhm.
the hollowness that can come with like unchecked ambition and also the consequences of clinging to those old outdated systems.
Yeah.
Think of it like a visual representation of what happens when things fall apart, both literally and figuratively.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So it's like this inner decay mirroring outward decay. That makes me think of Edgar Allan Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher,
Yeah.
that crumbling mansion. And then the family inside is also kind of falling apart at the seams.
Oh, such a good example. It's so powerful. And the way Poe uses the house in that story. It's like the house itself becomes a character, reflecting the Usher family's their mental and emotional state perfectly. I mean, think about it. The house is falling apart,
Yeah.
and at the same time, they are too, mentally and emotionally. Poe's really driving home the point that their internal decay is just as, if not more, significant than all the physical decay that's surrounding them.
Yeah, it's like their environment is a direct reflection of their inner state.
Hmm.
And speaking of houses as reflections, we can't forget Charles Dickens
Yeah.
and Miss Havisham and that decaying mansion, saddest house in Great Expectations. I mean, it's like a monument to all those shattered dreams, lost love, and just, the emptiness of wealth.
Yeah, there's a really strong parallel to the fall of the House of Usher there. I mean, both authors, they use that Gothic imagery to critique this relentless pursuit of wealth and status. Like, what's the point of all this wealth if you don't actually have genuine happiness? What if you're completely isolated and disconnected? Both novels really seem to suggest that true wealth is about human connection and emotional well-being, not just how many possessions you've got.
That actually leads perfectly into a really interesting point made in the excerpt. The idea that Gothic literature often portrays wealth itself as a source of corruption. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like how do Usher and Great Expectations really show us that idea in action?
Well, let's take the Ushers. Their family fortune, it keeps them trapped in this crumbling world. Literally, of course, but also metaphorically. They're totally isolated from like normal society. And the wealth, it's actually led to their moral decline. It's warped how they see the world and disconnected them from reality. And then you've got Miss Havisham holding on to her wealth, but it's just this bitter reminder of her past heartbreak. It becomes a symbol of her totally wasted life. So in both cases, wealth isn't actually liberating. It's a source of suffering, really.
It's like that wealth is it's almost like it's eating away at them from the inside. It's a poison. But it's not all about wealthy people, is it? The excerpt talks about how Gothic lit also portrays poverty as a space of struggle, but also a space of resilience. I'm really interested in how that contrasts with how those wealthy characters are depicted.
You're hitting on a really important point there. It really forces us to think about that assumption that wealth equals happiness or even some kind of superiority. While those impoverished characters, they might face some really difficult hardships, they often have this strength of resourcefulness that those wealthy, isolated characters we've been talking about
Mhm.
just lack. They've had to adapt to survive to rely on each other, find creative ways to get by. And in all that struggle, well, there's a certain kind of resilience there.
Yeah, so we've got these two sides of the coin, right? Wealth that corrupts and isolates, and poverty that forces you to be uh, resilient and resourceful. It really gets you thinking about social inequality in a totally different light.
Exactly. And that's what makes Gothic literature so, well, So brilliant, I think. It uses these creepy, these unsettling images of decay, not just for scares, but to make us really think about social structures, about the way power works, and about, what truly matters at the end of the day. It makes us question those things we value so much.
It really does. It actually makes you wonder, if those Gothic authors were writing today, what parts of our society would they be critiquing? What modern houses would symbolize, like decay and social problems for them? What do you think?
That's a question we should all be asking ourselves, honestly. Look around. Think about the institutions we deal with every single day,
Yeah.
the systems that kind of run our lives. Where do you see those signs of decay, of moral compromise? Where are the cracks showing? I think that's the real question those Gothic writers leave us with.
That's an excellent point. Lots to think about. Well, that about wraps up our deep dive for today. Until next time.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.